The stars were quiet that night, but the message that arrived was not. Admiral Park stood alone in his office, high above the spinning blue earth. He was a man of 62 years, with gray hair and deep lines on his face that told stories of decades spent protecting humanity among the stars. Through the tall windows, he could see the planet below, covered in lights from the cities where 8 billion people slept without fear. They did not know that everything was about to change. The message on his screen was short, but its meaning was enormous. The Dominion, the oldest and most powerful empire in the known galaxy, had declared war on humanity. After months of tension and years of distrust, they had finally decided that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to grow any stronger. Read the message 3 times before he believed it was real. They were ancient. Their civilization had existed for 4,000 years, spreading across 17 star systems and conquering every species that stood in their way. They had never lost a war, not once in 4,000 years. They looked at humanity the way a giant might look at an insect, small, weak, and easy to crush. Now that giant was coming to crush them. Pressed a button on his desk and spoke into the communicator. "Get me Commander, tell her it is urgent." 30 minutes later, walked into his office. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She had served under for 15 years and knew him better than almost anyone. One look at his face told her something terrible had happened. Though she said it was not a question. "They have declared war. The Galactic Council confirmed it 1 hour ago." Sat down heavily in the chair across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she pulled up her tablet and began working, because that was what soldiers did when faced with impossible situations. They worked. "Our intelligence reports say they have gathered over 3,000 warships at the Nexus Point," she said. "That is the largest fleet they have ever assembled." Nodded. He knew the Nexus Point well. It was a strategic location where several space travel routes came together. Whoever controlled that point controlled access to Earth. They had chosen their position carefully. "How many ships can we gather?" he asked. Checked her data. "If we recall every vessel from every patrol, every border station, every colony defense, we can assemble approximately 1,200 ships." 1,200 against 3,000. The numbers were not good. "What about our weapons?" asked. "The Cascade systems." "All our combat ships are equipped with Cascade technology. They have tried to copy it for decades, but they have never succeeded. They do not understand how it works." The Cascade weapons were humanity's secret advantage. Scientists had discovered them by accident 50 years ago, and they had changed everything. The weapons could tear through enemy shields like they were made of paper. No other species had anything like them. But weapons alone did not win wars. Numbers mattered, experience mattered, and they had both. Stood up and walked to the window. He looked down at Earth, at the billions of lives depending on his decisions. Children sleeping in their beds, families eating dinner together, young couples dreaming about their futures. All of them unaware that an ancient empire wanted them dead. "Call the fleet," he said. "Every ship we have, every soldier, every pilot, every engineer. We will meet them at the Nexus Point." Looked at him with concern. "Admiral, if we lose that battle, Earth will have no defense." "If we lose that battle, there will be no Earth to defend. We cannot hide. We cannot run. We go with everything we have and pray it is enough." The orders went out that night, and the galaxy began to move. Ships came from everywhere. Giant battleships that took years to build, fast destroyers that could outrun anything, small fighters that darted like angry insects. They all gathered in Earth's orbit, forming a fleet larger than anything humanity had ever assembled. Lieutenant watched the gathering from her station aboard the flagship Indomitable. She was 28 years old, young for her rank, with dark hair tied back and quick hands that moved across her tactical console with practiced skill. She had trained for years for this moment, running thousands of simulations, preparing for the day when humanity would face its greatest test. Now that day had come, and she was terrified. She tried to hide it, of course. Everyone on the bridge tried to hide their fear. They shouted orders and checked systems and did their jobs like professionals, but could see the truth in their eyes, the slight trembling of hands, the forced smiles that never quite reached the eyes. They were all afraid. They were all wondering if they would ever see their families again. During her break, went to her small cabin and sat on her bed. She held a recording device in her hands and stared at it for a long time before pressing the button. "Mom, Dad," she said softly, "I do not know if I will come home from this. I want you to know that I love you both. I am not sorry for the choices I made. Someone has to stand between Earth and the darkness. I am proud that someone is me." She paused to wipe her eyes. "Please take care of my little brother. Tell him to study hard and be kind to others. And tell him that his sister was brave. Even when she was scared, she was brave." She ended the recording and put the device away. Then she straightened her uniform, took a deep breath, and returned to her station. On the last night before departure, Admiral addressed the entire fleet. His voice was broadcast to every ship, every cabin, every soldier who would fly with him into the unknown. "Men and women of Earth," he said, standing tall on the bridge of the Indomitable. "Tomorrow we face an enemy that has never been defeated. They are older than us. They have more ships than us. They believe we are weak, that we are nothing, that we will fall like all the others before us." He let the silence stretch for a moment. "They are wrong. We are humanity. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have survived wars among ourselves that should have destroyed us. We have crawled out of every grave the universe has dug for us, and we are still here, still fighting, still refusing to die." His voice grew stronger. "Tomorrow we will show them what that means. Tomorrow they will learn why they should have left us alone." Across the fleet, soldiers cheered, pilots shouted. Even the quiet officers allowed themselves to feel hope. Listened to the Admiral's words and felt the fear in her chest begin to change. It was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Pride, determination, a fierce will to survive. The next morning, the fleet activated their engines and began the journey to the nexus point. One by one, the ships disappeared into the swirling blue light of hyperspace. Admiral watched the stars blur around him and thought about what waited ahead. Humanity was going to war. The Indomitable was the first ship to exit hyperspace, followed moments later by the rest of the human fleet in perfect battle formation. Weapons were armed. Shields were raised. Every soldier on every ship held their breath, ready for the fight of their lives. But there was nothing to fight. Admiral Park stood at the front of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, staring at them with disbelief. The nexus point stretched before them, vast and empty. Stars glittered in the distance. Asteroids drifted slowly through the void. But there were no enemy ships, no weapons pointed at them, no armada waiting to destroy humanity. Just silence and darkness. "This is not possible," Commander said, her fingers flying across her console. "Our intelligence was clear. 3,000 ships were gathered here. They should be right in front of us." "Find them," ordered. His voice was calm, but his mind was racing. Lieutenant worked her tactical station with focused intensity. She ran scan after scan, checking every frequency, every sensor range, every possible hiding place. The results were always the same: empty, nothing, gone. Chief Science Officer Lee, a thin, nervous man with glasses and restless hands, ran even deeper scans. He checked for cloaking signatures, residual heat, gravity distortions, anything that might indicate hidden ships. After 20 minutes of searching, he turned to the Admiral with confusion written all over his face. "Sir, there is nothing here. No ships, no debris, no energy traces. The fleet has completely vanished." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Officers looked at each other with wide, uncertain eyes. Some seemed relieved that there would be no battle. Others looked more frightened than before. An enemy you could see was dangerous. An enemy you could not see was terrifying. "Could this be a trap?" asked quietly. Shook her head slowly. "I do not see how, Admiral. They cannot hide 3,000 ships from our sensors. Their technology is good, but not that good. If they were here, we would see them." "Then where did they go?" No one had an answer. Communications officer suddenly raised her hand. She was a small, quiet woman whose job was to listen to the galaxy's chatter. Right now, the galaxy was saying very strange things. "Admiral, I am receiving transmissions from nearby star systems. They are broken and hard to understand, but I can make out some parts." "Let us hear them." Worked her console and the bridge speakers crackled with static. Then, through the noise, came voices. Alien voices, speaking in languages the translation computers quickly decoded. "The humans are coming. They have arrived at the nexus point. Leave now, there is no time. The humans will be here soon. May the stars protect us. The humans are coming." Then silence. Felt ice run through her veins. Those voices had been terrified, deeply, completely terrified. But they were not voices. They belonged to other species, smaller civilizations that lived in this region of space. Why were they afraid of humans? Humans were the ones being attacked. Humans were the underdogs. Humans were the ones who should be afraid. What was happening? Admiral made his decision quickly. Standing still and asking questions would not give them answers. They needed to move forward and see what they could find. "All ships advance," he ordered. "Maintain battle formation. Stay alert for any threat. We will find out what happened here." The fleet moved deeper into what should have been enemy territory. They traveled for hours, passing through star systems that had been under control for centuries. At each stop, they found the same thing. Nothing. Space stations floated empty, their lights dark and their docking bays open. Colony ships drifted without crews. Orbital platforms hung silent above planets that showed no signs of life. Everything had been abandoned. Captain led a team to investigate one of the empty stations. He was a broad man with the instincts of a born soldier, trained for combat and ready for anything. Or so he thought. Walking through the dark hallways of the abandoned station, he felt something he had not expected. Unease. Deep, unsettling unease. "It looks like they left in the middle of everything," he reported over the radio to the fleet. "Food is still on the tables. Personal belongings are scattered everywhere. They did not pack. They did not prepare. They just ran." Listened to his report from the bridge and tried to understand. What could make people abandon their food, their possessions, their entire lives? What could be so frightening that running was the only option? The fleet continued forward day after day, system after system. Each new location told the same story. They had not just retreated. They had fled in complete panic, leaving everything behind. Analyzed data recovered from the abandoned stations. He found ship departure records, communication logs, and navigation data. All of it pointed in the same direction, away from human space. "They started evacuating about a week before our fleet arrived," he explained to the senior officers. "Right around the time we finished assembling our ships." Frowned deeply. "They saw us gathering our forces and decided to run. That makes no sense. They had almost 3 times our numbers. Every advantage was on their side." "Perhaps they did not see it that way," said thoughtfully. Over the following days, intercepted more transmissions from across the region. Other alien species were talking about the human fleet, spreading rumors and warnings from system to system. "Did you hear? The humans came and they disappeared overnight. They say human weapons can destroy anything. Nothing can stop them. Do not make the humans angry. Look what happened to the..." Listened to these messages with growing discomfort. She had expected to fight in a desperate war for survival. She had prepared herself to be a soldier, perhaps a hero, maybe a casualty. She had not prepared herself for this. The galaxy was talking about humans like they were monsters, like they were the villains in some terrible story, creatures to be feared, avoided, hidden from. But that was not right. Humans were not monsters. They were just people trying to survive. Yes, they had powerful weapons. Yes, their history was full of violence. But they also had art and music and love. They protected their children and cared for their elderly and dreamed of peaceful futures. Why did the galaxy only see the darkness? The fleet traveled for 10 more days, moving ever closer to the heart of space. With each empty system they passed, with each abandoned station they found, the mystery grew deeper and the unease grew stronger. Finally, they reached their destination. Prime, the ancient empire, appeared on their sensors. The heart of a civilization that had ruled for 4,000 years lay directly ahead. Stood at the window and looked at the distant star that lit the world. "All ships prepare for combat," he ordered. "If they are going to make a stand anywhere, it will be here." The fleet moved into attack formation, weapons ready, shields at maximum power. 1,200 ships, carrying the hopes of humanity, approached the enemy. Gripped her console and held her breath. Whatever answers existed, they were waiting on that planet. The question was whether humanity was ready to hear them. The military station hung in the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. It was enormous, larger than anything humans had ever built among the stars. Its metal surface was dark and cold, its lights were dead, and its many docking bays stood open and empty. Admiral ordered a team to go aboard and investigate. Captain led the mission, with Lieutenant volunteering to join. Chief Science Officer Lee came along to study any information they might find. Their shuttle approached the station slowly, watched through the window as the massive structure grew larger and larger. Up close, she could see signs of the hasty departure. Scratch marks on the hull from ships that had left too quickly, debris floating in space that should have been collected, small personal items drifting through the void, lost and forgotten. "No life signs," announced, checking his scanner. "No power except emergency backup systems. The station is completely empty." They docked and stepped out into darkness. The air was cold and stale, recycled too many times with no one left to refresh it. Their flashlights cut through the black, revealing long hallways that seemed to stretch forever. Had explored abandoned places before, but nothing like this. This place felt different, not dangerous exactly, but deeply sad, like a home where a family had died suddenly, leaving all their memories behind. "Stay together," ordered. "We search room by room, look for anything that can tell us what happened." They moved through the station carefully. Every door they opened revealed the same scene: chaos frozen in time, chairs knocked over, personal belongings scattered across floors, screens still displaying old messages that no one would ever read. They had not left in an orderly manner. They had fled in absolute panic. In one room, found something that stopped her heart. A child's toy, small and soft, shaped like some alien animal she did not recognize. Someone's child had dropped it while running. Someone's child had been so scared that they forgot their favorite toy. She picked it up and held it in her hands for a long time. They were her enemies. They had declared war on her people. They wanted to destroy humanity. She was supposed to hate them. But looking at this toy, she could not feel hate. She felt only sadness. They were living beings with families and children. They experienced fear just like humans did. They loved their little ones just like humans did. What had scared them so badly? "Over here," called from down the corridor. "I found their intelligence center." They gathered in a large room filled with computer terminals. Most of the machines were dark and dead, but had found one with emergency power still flowing. His fingers moved across the alien keyboard, working to break through the security systems. This is where they studied their enemies, he explained while working. If there are answers anywhere, they will be in these files. It took him nearly 2 hours to break the encryption. When he finally succeeded, thousands of documents appeared on the screen. Reports, recordings, images, analysis, decades of carefully gathered information about one subject. Humanity. They have been watching us for a very long time, whispered, much longer than we realized. He opened the first document. It was a historical summary of human civilization. The had documented everything about humanity, their wars, their weapons, their behavior, their psychology. They had watched from the shadows for decades, trying to understand this strange new species. The report started simply enough. It described human origins, their slow evolution on Earth, their gradual development of technology. But as scrolled further, the tone of the writing changed. The dry scientific observations became worried notes. The worried notes became urgent warnings. One section was labeled Human Conflict Patterns. It listed every major war that humans had fought against each other. The numbers were staggering. Millions killed in ancient battles. Tens of millions killed in world wars. Hundreds of millions killed across all of human history. And then, the development of nuclear weapons, tools capable of destroying entire cities in seconds. An analyst had added a note at the bottom of this section. No other species in our records developed weapons of total destruction while still fighting among themselves. This behavior suggests humans do not fear extinction the way normal species do. They seem almost comfortable with the possibility of their own end. Another section analyzed human military tactics. They seemed particularly disturbed by a strategy called scorched earth. When humans were losing a war, they would often destroy everything in their path, their own cities, their own farms, their own resources, just to deny them to the enemy. The analyst wrote, "They would rather destroy everything they have than surrender it to an enemy. This is not rational military thinking. This is the behavior of a species that values victory more than survival itself." Read these words with a strange hollow feeling in her chest. She knew human history. She had studied the wars and the weapons in school, but seeing it described through alien eyes made it look completely different. It made humanity look terrifying. Stood beside her, his face grim and hard. "They think we are crazy." "No," said quietly. "They think we are dangerous. Those are two very different things." He opened another document, this one about human technology. They had tracked humanity's progress carefully over the centuries, and what they had found had clearly shocked them. Humans had gone from simple farming to nuclear power in less than 200 years. They had gone from nuclear power to travel between stars in another 100 years. This kind of rapid advancement was unprecedented. Other species took thousands of years to make such progress. Humans had done it in a few generations. One report stated clearly, "Rate of technological advancement exceeds all known species. Current projections suggest humans will surpass technology within 50 years. This development cannot be permitted." That was why they had declared war, suddenly understood. They had not attacked because they thought humans were weak. They had attacked because they knew humans were becoming strong. Too strong too quickly. But somewhere along the way, their strategy had turned into something else. Their practical concerns had become genuine fear. The last document was marked with the highest security classification. Hesitated before opening it, sensing that whatever was inside would change everything. It was a military analysis, written by the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. It examined every possible outcome of a war between the two civilizations. The results were devastating. In most simulations, they won the early battles. Their numbers were greater, their experience was deeper, their technology was more proven. But the simulations did not stop there. They showed what happened after the first victories. Humans did not surrender. Even when they were clearly losing, they fought harder. They turned civilian ships into weapons. They attacked supply lines. They used tactics that other species considered suicidal. They sacrificed themselves to destroy their enemies. In simulation after simulation, the won battles but lost ships. They captured territory but could not hold it. The humans kept coming, kept fighting, kept dying and taking down with them. The commander's final conclusion was brutal. We can defeat the human fleet. We cannot defeat the human spirit. A war with this species will not end until one side is completely destroyed. Given their psychology and our projected losses, we may not be the survivors. Finished reading and stepped back from the screen. Her hands were trembling. She did not know if she felt proud or horrified by what she had learned. They had not run because they were cowards. They had run because they were intelligent. They had studied humanity carefully and seen something that scared them more than any weapon. They had seen a species that would never stop, never give up, never accept anything less than total victory or total destruction. They had seen predators wearing the faces of civilized beings. All the files to a portable device. The Admiral needs to see this immediately. Nodded slowly. Everyone needs to see this. Humanity needs to understand how the galaxy sees us. They walked back to the shuttle in silence, still carried the child's toy in her hand. Before boarding, she placed it gently on a shelf where someone might find it someday. Somewhere out there, a child was growing up in exile, afraid of monsters called humans. Wondered if that fear was justified. She wondered what the real truth was about her own species. Were humans defenders of their home, or were they the monsters the galaxy believed them to be? Perhaps the answer was both. Prime filled and despite everything, it took breath away. The planet was beautiful, larger than Earth, covered in swirling purple clouds and vast silver oceans that sparkled under the light of their sun. From orbit, the signs of a great civilization were everywhere. Massive cities stretched across the continents like glittering spider webs. Enormous rings of metal and glass orbited the planet. Space elevators rose from the surface like fingers reaching toward the heavens. 4,000 years of history, 4,000 years of art, science, culture, and life. All of it was visible from space. All of it was silent, all of it was dark, all of it was empty. Complete scan of the planet's surface, Lieutenant reported, her voice quiet. No power signatures, no communications, no movement. The entire world has been abandoned. Admiral Park stood at the window, staring down at the dead world below. He had spent his entire career preparing for war. He had imagined this moment countless times, arriving at the enemy for the final decisive battle. He had expected fire and blood and sacrifice. He had not expected this. "Send teams to the surface," he ordered after a long silence. "I want to know exactly what happened here." Chief Engineer No led the first ground team. He was a practical man who solved problems with his hands and his tools. He had built ships and repaired stations and kept engines running in the worst conditions. But he had never seen anything like the world he stepped onto that day. The capital city was enormous. Buildings rose toward the purple sky, their surfaces decorated with beautiful patterns and alien writing that humans could not read. Parks and gardens stretched between the towers, filled with strange plants that had no names in any human language. Fountains stood in public squares, their water long since dried up. Everything was perfectly preserved, and everything was completely deserted. Walked through the empty streets, his boots echoing on the polished stone. The sound seemed wrong, too loud in a place that should have been filled with millions of voices. His team spread out through the area, scanning buildings and recording everything they found. The power grid was shut down deliberately, one of his engineers reported. Same with water and transportation. Someone turned everything off in an organized way before leaving. "How long ago?" asked. "Based on the environmental readings, about 2 weeks. right around the time the human fleet finished assembling. Nodded slowly. 2 weeks. Just 14 days for an entire civilization to pack up and disappear. Billions of people moved in 2 weeks. The logistics were almost impossible to imagine. It should have taken months, maybe years, to evacuate a planet of this size. But they had done it. They had found a way. He walked into a public square and found a large fountain in the center. The basin was dry now, but he could imagine how beautiful it must have looked with water dancing in the light. Statues of leaders surrounded the fountain, their stone faces looking down at streets that would never see crowds again. On the base of one statue, someone had written words in a hurried, desperate hand. His translation device processed the alien language slowly. "They are coming. May the stars protect us all." Back in orbit, Admiral reviewed all the data collected by the ground teams. The picture was becoming clear, and it was stranger than anything he had imagined. Beneath the surface of Prime, they had hidden ancient technology. Wormhole gates, built thousands of years ago, capable of transporting people instantly to a distant part of the galaxy that no one else knew existed. These gates had been kept as an emergency escape route, unused waiting for a day that the hoped would never come. When the evacuation order went out, the gates had opened for the first time in 4,000 years. The entire population had walked through them and vanished. Men, women, children, elderly, everyone. They had left their home, their history, their entire civilization behind. All because they were afraid of humanity. Commander stood beside, shaking her head slowly. They had this escape plan ready for 4,000 years. They always knew a day might come when they needed to run. "They just never imagined it would be us who made them run," replied quietly. Communications officer looked up from her console with an unusual expression on her face. "Admiral, I found something in the planetary communication archives. A recorded message. It is addressed specifically to you." Turned to look at her, "To me personally?" "Yes, sir. It uses your exact name and rank." "Play it." The mane flickered and then appeared. He was old, ancient even by their standards, with gray, wrinkled skin and eyes that had seen thousands of years of history. He wore elaborate formal robes that marked him as a member of the High Council, the ruling body of the Dominion. "Admiral Park of Earth," the old said, his voice tired but steady. "If you are seeing this message, then you have reached you have found it empty. You are wondering why we left." He paused, gathering his thoughts like a man about to confess something painful. "We declared war on your species because we believed we had no choice. Your technology was advancing too quickly. Your influence was spreading too fast. In another generation, perhaps two, you would have become stronger than us. We thought we could stop you while we still had the advantage." His ancient eyes seemed to look directly through the screen at. "We were wrong." The continued slowly. "Our military commanders ran every possible simulation of a war with humanity. They tested thousands of scenarios, considering every variable, every strategy, every possible outcome. What they found terrified us." He shifted in his seat, looking even more tired than before. "In every simulation, we paid a terrible price. Even when we won, we lost too much. Your species does not fight like others we have conquered. You do not surrender when you are beaten. You do not retreat when you are outnumbered. You do not value your own survival above your determination to win." Listened to these words and felt cold spreading through her body. She had read the intelligence files from the abandoned station. She had seen the analysis of human nature. But hearing it spoken directly, hearing the fear in this ancient being's voice, made it feel more real and more frightening. "We have conquered 100 species in our long history," the old continued. "We have fought wars that lasted centuries. We have faced enemies of every kind imaginable, but we have never faced anything like humanity. Other species look at certain death and feel fear. Your species looks at death and feels anger. You become more dangerous when you are wounded, not less. You become more determined when you are losing, not less. He leaned forward slightly. Our simulations showed us something we did not want to believe. If we went to war with humanity, one of our civilizations would be completely destroyed. And in most scenarios, the survivors were not us. The straightened in his seat. So we made a different choice. We activated our ancient escape protocols. We gathered our people, every man, woman, and child, and we led them through gates that take us far from here to a region of space you cannot reach. Some species will call us cowards for running. Let them call us whatever they wish. We know the truth. We were wise. His voice grew heavier. You have won, Admiral, not through battle but through reputation alone. The galaxy will learn what happened here. They will learn that an empire of 4,000 years fled rather than fight humanity. Your species will be feared for many generations. He paused, his eyes somehow sad. I wonder if you truly understand what this means. Fear is a powerful weapon, but it is also a heavy burden. The galaxy will never see you as friends now. They will see you as predators. Every species you meet will smile politely to your face while hiding weapons behind their back. You will have peace, but you will have it alone. The old raised one hand in a gesture of farewell. We chose exile over extinction. We chose to lose our home rather than lose our people. I hope you never face a similar choice, because I do not believe humanity would choose as we did. I believe you would fight until nothing remained on either side. His hand lowered slowly. Goodbye, Admiral Park of Earth. May you never meet another species as stubborn as your own. The screen went dark. Silence filled the bridge. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of those words pressed down on everyone. Stared at the empty screen for a long moment. Then he turned and looked out the window at Prime. The beautiful dead world continued its eternal orbit, a monument to what fear could do. He had come here expecting to fight the greatest battle in human history. He had prepared himself for death and sacrifice and glory. Instead, he had received a warning. Was the first to break the silence. Admiral, she said softly, what do we do now? Did not answer immediately. He watched the abandoned planet turn slowly below them. Somewhere far away, beyond gates that humans could not open, billions were starting new lives. They had given up everything, their home, their history, their identity, rather than risk war with humanity. We go home, finally said, and we think very carefully about what kind of future we want to build. The fleet turned away from Prime and began the long journey back to Earth. Behind them, the silent planet continued its endless dance around a distant star. The war was over before it began. But something far more complicated had just started. 6 months had passed since the fleet returned home, and nothing was the same. Admiral Park stood before the United Earth Parliament in the Great Assembly Hall. Thousands of people filled the seats around him, politicians, military officers, journalists, and ordinary citizens who had come to hear the truth. Cameras broadcast his words to every corner of human space, to every colony and station and ship where humans lived. We went to war, began, his voice steady and clear. We gathered every ship we had. We prepared to fight and die for the survival of our species, but the war never happened. He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. The Dominion, an empire that had ruled 17 star systems for 4,000 years, chose to abandon everything rather than face humanity in battle. They left their planets, their stations, there. They walked through ancient gates to a part of the galaxy we cannot reach, and they took their entire civilization with them. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Even after 6 months, the story still seemed impossible. We have inherited everything they left behind, continued. 17 star systems, hundreds of planets, technology and resources beyond anything we could have built in a century. We gained all of this without firing a single weapon. By any measure, this is the greatest victory in human history." He stopped speaking for a moment, and his face grew serious. But this victory came with a price. He told them about the intelligence files found on the abandoned station. He told them about the analysis of human nature, the wars, the weapons, the refusal to surrender. He told them about the military simulations that showed humanity winning through sheer stubborn refusal to stop fighting, even when victory cost everything. He told them about the final message from the High Council. They did not run because they were weak, said. They ran because they were wise. They looked at humanity and saw something that scared them more than losing a war. They saw a species that would never stop fighting, never give up, never accept anything less than total victory or total destruction. The chamber was completely silent now. The galaxy knows what happened. Every species from here to the edge of known space has heard the story. They know why they fled, and they are afraid of us now. He let those words hang in the air. We are no longer newcomers among the stars. We are no longer the young species learning to walk. In the eyes of the galaxy, we are now the most dangerous civilization that has ever existed. Every species we meet will treat us with respect and fear. They will smile at us while building secret weapons. They will trade with us while planning escape routes. Looked around the chamber at the faces staring back at him. We must decide what kind of future we want to build. Will we use fear to rule? Will we become the monsters the galaxy believes us to be? Or will we prove them wrong? Will we show them that humanity can be trusted, respected, even loved? He stepped back from the podium. That choice belongs to all of us, every human being, every day, for generations to come. They gave us their territory. What we do with it will define who we really are. He walked out of the chamber without waiting for questions or applause. He had said what needed to be said. The rest was up to humanity. Commander was waiting for him in the corridor outside. She fell into step beside him as they walked toward the exit. That was quite a speech, she said. It was the truth. They needed to hear it. They walked in silence for a moment before spoke again. The council was right about one thing. Trust will be very hard to build now. Everyone will be watching us, waiting for us to prove their fears correct. Nodded slowly. Then we build trust the only way it can be built, slowly, action by action, year by year. We show the galaxy that humanity is more than war and weapons. That sounds like a project that will take longer than our lifetimes. It will, but someone has to start it. Across the planet, in a military academy overlooking the ocean, Captain stood before a classroom of young officer candidates. She had been promoted after the campaign and given a new assignment, training the next generation of humanity's defenders. She had spent weeks preparing this lecture. It was about the war that never happened. You have all read the official reports, she told her students. You know the basic facts. An enemy declared war on us. We assembled our fleet. They ran away before we could fight them. Sounds simple, does it not? Almost funny. Some students nodded, a few even smiled. It is not simple, said her voice sharp. It is not funny, and if you think it is, you have not understood anything at all. The smiles disappeared. Walked among the desks, looking at each young face in turn. They were not cowards. They were one of the most successful civilizations in galactic history. They conquered 100 species. They never lost a single war. When they declared war on us, they genuinely believed they would win. She stopped at the front of the classroom. But then they studied us. They looked at our history, our psychology, our way of fighting, and what they saw terrified them. Not our ships or our weapons, us. The way we think. The way we refuse to surrender. The way we would rather die than accept defeat. A student raised her hand. Is that not a good thing? It means we are strong. Considered the question carefully. It can be a good thing. Our determination has saved us many times, but it can also be terrible. They calculated that a war with humanity would not end until one side was completely destroyed. They looked at the possible futures and asked themselves a question: is any victory worth that price? She turned to look out the window at the blue sky. They decided it was not. They abandoned their home, their history, everything they had built over 4,000 years, because they believed that fighting humanity meant the end of everything. She faced her students again. That is the reputation we carry now. Every species in the galaxy has heard this story. They believe it. They fear us because of it. The room was very quiet. Your job, as the next generation of officers, is to decide what we do with this reputation. Will we use fear to dominate others? Will we become the monsters everyone believes we are? Or will we prove them wrong? Will we show the galaxy that humanity can be kind, trustworthy, and good? She looked at each student carefully. They feared what we might become if pushed too far. The question I want you to think about is this: were they wrong to fear us? And if they were not wrong, what are we going to do about it? She dismissed the class and watched the young officers file out. Some looked thoughtful, some looked troubled. Good. They needed to be troubled. They needed to understand the weight of what humanity had become. Across the galaxy, in hidden corners and distant stations, other species watched humanity with careful, worried eyes. They had heard the stories. They had analyzed the data. They knew what they had feared. Some of them began building secret weapons, preparing for a day that might never come. Others sent diplomats to Earth, offering friendship and trade, hoping to stay on the good side of the galaxy's new apex predators. A few species began quietly planning their own escape routes, gates and ships that could carry them far away if the humans ever turned their attention in their direction. And in the halls of galactic power, in whispered conversations and secret meetings, a new saying began to spread. It passed from merchant to merchant, from diplomat to spy, from frightened parent to wide-eyed child. When humans arrive for war, the wise have already gone. Back on Earth, Admiral sat in his office late at night. The lights of the city sparkled below his window, and the stars sparkled above. Somewhere out there, in a distant part of the galaxy that humans could not reach, the civilization was rebuilding. They had lost their home but saved their people. Held the data chip containing the High Council's final message. He had watched it many times over the past months. Each time, the old words hit him differently. I do not believe humanity would choose as wisely as we did. I believe you would fight until nothing remained. Was that true? Honestly did not know. He hoped it was not. He hoped that if the time ever came, humanity would know when to stop fighting, when to choose survival over victory, when to save their people even at the cost of their pride. But deep in his heart, in the part of him that had sent 1,200 ships to war without hesitation, he was not certain. He looked up at the stars and thought about the future. Humanity had won an impossible victory. They had gained power and territory and a reputation that would echo through the ages. But they had also gained a burden, the burden of being feared. The galaxy was watching. History was being written with every choice humanity made. What would they become? The answer to that question did not exist yet. It would be written by the decisions of every human being, every day, for generations to come. It would be written by soldiers and scientists, by leaders and ordinary people, by those who chose peace and those who chose war. They had seen humanity's potential for destruction. They had run from it. Now it was time for humanity to prove that potential was not destiny. Turned off the lights in his office and went home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new opportunities to shape what humanity would become. The war that never happened was over. The real test was just beginning. And somewhere, in the depths of space, other civilizations whispered to each other in the darkness. The humans were coming. And the wise knew what that meant.